energy.
It's good old rock and roll.
Come along as we take a look at Southern rock. Bluesy, soulful, and a whole lot of attitude. These tunes are homegrown, deep-fried, and sanctified. This is CMT's 20 Greatest Southern Rock Songs. In our number 20 song, a Southern rock legend confesses.
I'm no angel. Love that song.
No, I'm no angel. No, I'm no stranger to the street.
Greg is a great blues singer. I think he just obviously took that pain and that emotion that is in a blues singer's voice. He's traditionally one of the greatest white blues singers because of that.
The big Hammond B3, he can do no wrong.
And I'm half crazy. Come on.
One of those voices that seems like it's about to give out any minute, but it never does.
I'm easier to hold.
He's just an amazing singer, and you have the ability to really feel what he's singing about.
Rough and ready.
No, I'm no angel.
There's something very soothing about his voice.
And very sexy about his voice.
And sexy.
I have to say.
Let me rock your cradle.
That was kind of like a separate era for him to remind everybody that he's the badass. He's the one that got all this Southern rock rolling.
Show you my tattoo. Let me drive you crazy.
At that time, that was his signature song. He'd break in if Sal's going to do it again, and you'd have thought we were in the heart of Dixie, and there we are, 170 miles north of New York City.
Well, the train, the grinder switch is running right on time. Tucker boys are cooking down in Carolina. People down in Florida can't be still. One old Lynyrd Skynyrd's picking down in Jacksonville. People down in Georgia come from near and far. Hear Richard Best picking on that red guitars. You gather round.
I think the fact that it's kind of cool when you name check the bands from your scene. It's a kind of a way to tip your hat to your friends.
The South's Gonna Do It Again was a kind of, anthology of Southern rock. In a sense, it was the definitive statement that if anybody needed the kind of cliff notes to Southern rock, Charlie Daniels was going to provide it.
He was a rock guy and who happened to play fiddle. And you had, you had some blues, and you had some rock, and you had some country, and you had all this stuff that was sort of mixed into one little thing. Everything about that song is good. It's just Southern boogie, and it's really well played.
It's pretty amazing because Charlie Daniels to this day is going out playing shows and still out there kicking ass, doing his thing.
And High Tides. Like Freebird, it's a staple of Southern rock.
The first time I saw the Outlaws, I remember I was in college and we had seats on the stage. And here were like three amazing guitar players. They just blew me away.
Every Southern rock band worshiped the Rolling Stones. And Greengrass and High Tides, of course, is a reversal of the great Stones' greatest hits record, High Tide and Green Grass. That there's a sense of, a kind of nod, a musical nod there to, to a band that inadvertently was one of the founders of Southern rock.
There was about a minute and a half of singing and then 7.5 minutes of guitar solos. It was about the music, man. They were not in a hurry to finish the song back then, I don't think. I think they were enjoying whatever they were enjoying at the time.
That classic, slow-building, epic rock song.
So Henry Paul, the singer in the Outlaws, wound up picking up a mandolin after a while, and he formed the band Black Hawk, which scored some hits on the country charts in the 90s.
It was great that he could continue his career on, sort of in the same vein, really, because
There's a lot of elements of Southern rock in modern country music.
Marshall Tucker Band brought a different sensibility to Southern rock. Here you had these badass Southern rockers, but they had this flautist. And so you had this combination of country and jazz that led to songs like Heard It in a Love Song.
There was a Marshall Tucker, but he wasn't in the Marshall Tucker Band.
Well, it's Tommy and Toy Caldwell. We started the Marshall Tucker Band. Doug Gray was the singer.
I always thought Doug was one of probably the finest white blues singer I've ever heard.
Heard It in a Love Song was definitely the track that broke through for them. You could tell this song represents Southern rock, but it somehow crosses over.
The rhythm section of the Marshall Tucker Band, a really underrated but classic rock and roll rhythm section. You had Tommy Caldwell on the bass. You had Paul Riddle, just a great jazzy drummer. Then he and Tommy Caldwell on bass worked together marvelously. And George McCorkle played rhythm guitar. He was kind of hanging back with the bass man and the drummer too, and it created this really propulsive sound that gave a place for Toy to leap off of into those guitar netherworlds.
There's a lot going on musically, but it doesn't necessarily call a lot of attention to itself. It just comes on the radio and it hits like a pop song does. It's like instantly appealing, and you know, it stays with you in the way that a great hook does.
When we return, we'll hop on board a locomotive, get into a bar fight, and raise a little hell. That and more, coming up on CMT's 20 Greatest Southern Rock Songs. Come back to CMT's 20 Greatest Southern Rock Songs. At number 16, Blackfoot's rockin' version of an old blues tune.
Oh, yeah. Blackfoot's Train. What a great song. I mean, the harmonica part that begins that, it gets people going at keg parties, particularly if they've already had a few.
Whenever I first heard that thing, when the harmonica hits in, man, you just go, who the heck's doing that? And then when it comes into the first initial dun 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 dun, then Ricky gives out a
My Lord, that's a testosterone song right there.
Ricky Medlock, who started out with Lynyrd Skynyrd and then ended up with Lynyrd Skynyrd again, brought his grandfather, Shorty, to do this song with this Southern hard rock band that he'd written years before.
He wrote the basic of the song, and what I actually did is that we were under the gun about doing one more tune for the record. And I just kind of started fooling around with it because I'd always liked the song. And we just thought it'd be cool to have him play the beginning and play the harmonica. So when he stepped his foot inside that studio and it was like, you know, multi-tracking, he refused to let us piece together that harmonica. He goes, if I'm not gonna be able to play this thing all together, hell with y'all, I'm out of here.
Shorty Matlock rules. That is such a technically perfect song. All the pushes and stops and the synchronicity of that song is so tight.
Ricky Medlock's an incredibly versatile musician all the way around. It was super cool that he would, you know, in tribute to his granddad, record a song and bring it up to date. There's something about old country and old blues that it can always be resurrected.
(1973), these long-haired Missouri kids, the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, come out with this song, If You Want to Get to Heaven. And we're a motley bunch. Still are.
It's one of those names. It's almost like Stone Temple Pilots, but it's Ozark Mountain Daredevils, right? If You Want to Get to Heaven had that beginning harmonica, cool, like jam-out thing going. The lyrics were fun, and it had a good, upbeat feeling. Want to Get to Heaven has been immortalized in Jesco the Dancing Outlaw documentary.
Jesco was this, safe to say, off-kilter dancer guy from the hills, and one big thing he liked to do was to put the Daredevils on his jukebox, pump up If You Want to Get to Heaven, and clog away. Jesco assuredly had every intention all the time, no problem with raising a little hell, whether or not it was going to help him get to heaven.
Wow. I've never been able to hear the song in the same way again after seeing Jesco. Ozark Mountain Daredevils got to have their place in the Southern Rock. It was a really cool track. It was simple, but it was definitely pointed. Gim Three Steps by Skynyrd is one of the classics off the first album. Another one of those songs that starts off with that badass riff, and then, you know, just kicks into a cool song.
They had this reputation for being these tough guys, fighting a lot, and they did. But that was one time where they weren't so tough. If you hear about how the song gets written, they had sense enough to get out while the getting was good.
Ronnie had a lot of wisdom in all his lyrics. There are always those little things that I have to call our Southern rock soul, where when Ronnie goes, excuse me.
One of those songs, again, that tells an absolutely great story where he's in a club, he's cutting a rug at the place called The Jug with Linda Lou, and suddenly he realizes that maybe Linda Lou has a boyfriend who's pretty big and about to whomp his ass. So he's like, okay, I need to get out of here. Let me talk you off the ledge with the 44. He's like, you put the gun away, I'm out of here.
Yeah, it was true. One night, Ronnie, he had an old Mustang we used to drive around in, and he wanted to talk to this girl. Alan and I were only 14 or 15. We couldn't go in this little bar. He just stepped inside the door, and about 10 minutes later, he came running out, jumped in the car, and took off. And we got back to the rehearsal place, and he just told the story about it. He went in and talked to this girl, and all of a sudden, this guy was coming to beat him up and pulled a gun, and he said, just give me 3 steps and I'll be out of here, mister. That's the way he wrote, you know, he just takes something and boom.
That's the real story. He's sticking to it.
Nothing kills a party better than a nice 44 Magnum shot at the band. Usually at that point, it's time to exit.
Georgia Satellites, Keep Your Hands to Yourself, went to #2 on the Billboard charts in 1986. And I think their secret weapon was their lead singer and guitar player, Dan Baird.
That song in particular is what kind of brought Southern rock to my attention. The Georgia Satellites were a badass rock band that was now.
What a breath of fresh air that was. And what talk about really good old rock and roll type of guitar.
Dan Baird has that thing where you're not sure it's what he's doing, but it's so damn musical.
His vocals aren't perfect, his voice is cracking, and you hear the little yodely parts of his voice.
You got the little Hank Williams moaning there, no huggy, no kissy.
It's a good song for girls to sing along to. Very effective and very, just the right amount of humor, but just the right amount of realism, and it's a perfect song.
That song gets the party going, there's no doubt about it.
Next, we'll do a little smiling, flirting, and fooling around. All on our way to CMT's #1 greatest Southern rock song. Turn this one up. At number 12, those Molly Hatchet boys take us to the brink of disaster.
Favorite Southern rock songs, gotta go with Flirting with Disaster by Molly Hatchet.
Molly Hatchet, you know, that was some hardcore Southern rock stuff.
The singer, Danny Joe, had a vocal sound. I don't know exactly what you would call it, but the guttural, it almost was like his guts were coming up through his vocal cords.
He had that gravelly voice, like he'd just kill you, you know? That guy he'd strike fear in people just singing to him. Sounded like he was an axe murderer. It may have been, for all I know.
Flirting with Disaster is one of the ultimately cool Southern rock songs for this reason. Because as a guy, you want to be tough. You want to be flirting with disaster, and what you're hoping you've projected, tough and cool. I could split at any time. I was a loner. I was a rebel.
The most evil album cover. Their album covers were just intriguing.
This was album art that was like made to get middle schoolers sent home from school when they wore the t-shirt, you know? You'd see the kid at the bus stop with the Molly Hatchet t-shirt, and you're thinking, he's probably got a test right around third period, because they're gonna make him go home, take that t-shirt off. It looks vaguely satanic. It doesn't look like a very scholarly thing. You know, come back with a Skynyrd shirt.
Well, you say you got the blues. You got holes in both of your shoes. You're feeling alone and confused. You got to keep on smiling. Keep on smiling.
Wet Willie's first hit, the first song that people really identified with them, was Keep On Smiling, which went top 10 Billboard.
'Cause your woman play a game, and it seems like you're to blame. Have mercy, keep on smiling. You gotta keep on smiling. Keep on smiling through the rain. Laughing out the pain, going with the change. Till the sun comes out again.
Wow, that's the best song the Rolling Stones never did. Keep on Smiling. Jimmy Hall was, I mean, he sounds a lot like Mick Jagger, only like he sounds like Mick Jagger wishes he sounded, because Jimmy Hall's Southern. He really is. He's the real deal.
Jimmy Hall has got more soul in his little finger than most people have in their whole body.
Well, that's Jimmy Hall. That's my heart guy. That's just one of those simple, timeless things.
Jimmy Hall can play the heck out of a harmonica. He goes on and ends up being part of Hank Williams Jr.'s band, has been for years. So Wet Willie lives every time that Hank Jr. takes the stage.
Funky, soulful, bluesy, I mean, great bar band stuff that elevated to being hit material.
Thanks a bunch. I tell you what, I don't care if you're in the mood to fall in love this evening or just want to fool around a little bit. We'd like to do this one for you.
Well, Fooled Around and Fell in Love, one of the most identifiable things about that, of course, is the lead singer, who people like to think it's Elvin Bishop, but of course it's Mickey Thomas, who we all ended up hearing later with Starship. And man, what a great singer he is.
Voice that could fit into any genre. It's one of those songs that gives you goosebumps every time you hear it.
Elvin Bishop and Fool Around and Fell in Love. And that was a great tune, and at the time, it was the only blues tune that would ever made it in the top 10, you know? It was great.
Tried to get people to cover that song because I love the song so much, but I have been refused every time. It's just one of those great performances that people are scared to try to duplicate.
Great hook. One of the best hooks of all time, because that's how it happens.
Fooled Around and Fell in Love has the longest outro of any song I've ever heard. It says it. There's no doubt of what the title of that song is. It says, I fooled around and fell in love, I know 100 times as the song is ending.
'38 Special, Hold On Loosely in particular, was of my time and of my era.
Once it starts, you hear that guitar.
You know, envision yourself, you know, God, if I could only steal my sister's boyfriend's Trans Am and go pick up that girl down the block and, you know, steal a six-pack of beer and crank up Hold On Loosely and try to make out in the back.
Adolescence, craziness.
That was good drinking music. I've always been a huge fan of 38 Special. God, I love that band, man.
They were kind of the glam Southern rock band.
Donnie Van Zant still out there with 38 Special doing his thing. It's one of those classic Southern rock songs.
Why wouldn't you hold on tightly? Wait a minute. Now I'm confused. Why did they sing, hold on tightly? Get them on the phone. Get them on the phone.
What Little Feat brought to the table, even though they were a California band, they had a strong New Orleans vibe going on there. And the grooves were amazing.
Just that groove, that Southern groove.
Garage bands have a hard time pulling off Little Feat. That's tough to do.
You knew they were great musicians, but they were still so loose. And that record just, I mean, hell, it spawned the Dixie Chicks, for God's sake.
Later on, we got the Dixie Chicks that came from that song, which would have been a whole other thing had they been the Tennessee Lambs.
It's slangy, southern, sexy talk.
How cheese whiz is that?
Who listens to lyrics? Dixie Chicken swings. It's a great song. I don't know what it's about today. I know what the melody sounds like, and I know that I respond to it with that innate joy that you get when an old friend comes into the room.
We're nearly there in our countdown to CMT's #1 greatest Southern rock song. But coming up first, let's take a midnight trip, do battle with the devil, and celebrate Southern style. Friends over for a party.
Hank Williams, in a lot of ways, epitomized everything about Southern rock.
You talk about that intersection where Southern rock and country music meet. I think Hank Jr. was able to really kind of find himself in that whole movement and also combine those things.
I got ketchup on my blue jeans that just burn my hand. Lord, it's hard to be a
the great thing about all my Rowdy Friends and Hank Jr. is that he's still going, singing the song and living the song. And now he's breaking in a whole new generation of Rowdy Friends.
Rowdy Friends are coming over tonight.
He's the best, man. What an unbelievable musician he is. He would write these great songs that were so simple and so, like, there was no bullshit to it.
One thing about my songs, they're not going to be fantasies, they're going to be real.
All my Rowdy Friends coming over tonight, that's my lifestyle. That's what we do. We put pigs in the ground. We cook them.
All good songs take about 10 minutes. All the writers will tell you that. It's just like opening a tap and the water coming out. There it is.
Well, you're about looking at our only Rowdy Friends sitting here because they're either dead or in jail.
There's still wild parties, and all his Rowdy Friends are still coming over.
He is the reigning champion of all that is rebellious in country. I think once a rebel, always a rebel. Hank, yeah, never gonna settle down.
Hank Jr. is the man. He rocks, dude.
That's right.
Midnight Rider was the kind of song that really evoked some of the spookiness of what the South is. There was an element of kind of danger to some of it. That sense of being a haunted man. That comes straight out of the blues. And, it's just beautifully rendered by the Allman Brothers.
Greg is a great blues singer. He took that pain and that emotion that is in a blues singer's voice. I mean, he took a lot of that to heart, and it really came out.
Dickie and Dwayne, those guys also developed that amazing twin guitar attack, which I think has pretty much influenced anyone that's picked up an electric guitar ever since. That was ground zero for Southern rock.
There were two specific voices. Dickie Betts had a country jazz sound, and Dwayne Allman had a deep bluesy jazz sound, and the two connected at the jazz. It was a perfect blend, because it brought all the elements of Southern music together. You have blues, jazz, and country right there in one solo.
Dwayne Allman was the best slide guitar player I've ever heard.
What he did with the slide guitar was revolutionary.
It was just so wild and dangerous sounding. It wasn't like perfect and it wasn't on in every spot. It was just sassy and raw.
The connection between his heart and his head and that slide was becoming closer and closer. It was just pouring out of him.
Some of those layered slide parts just blow my mind so much. Unbelievable.
Dwayne Allman, he was the best case closed.
The whole jam thing kind of started with those guys, of being able to open up and keep something coherent, but also ultra loose.
They were the founding fathers of Southern rock. They set the standard by which every other Southern rock band was judged. The Allman Brothers, one of the greatest American rock and roll bands ever.
Charlie Daniels with Devil Went Down to Georgia. What a great, simple lyric, but a very intricate, complex story.
Devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for soul steel. He was in a bind because he was way behind. He was willing to make a deal.
It really is about the human condition and with our constant struggle of good and bad and wrong and right.
Tell you what, I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you. Now, you play a pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due.
It's just like a machine gun fire of lyrics.
He's almost doing a redneck rap.
My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet you're going to regret because I'm the best there's ever been. Johnny.
In rock and roll, you don't see a lot of narrative. Charlie Daniels is approaching narrative head on. There's no figuring out the meaning. He's telling you a story.
And if you lose, devil get you so.
The Devil Went Down to Georgia. What was he going to find? A good old boot wearing beer swilling country boy. And the guy has fiddling contest, and you know by the end of it who won.
His case, he said, I'll start this show, and fire flew from his fingertips as he rosined up his bow.
Having that chaos musically behind it. It sounds so tense. I mean, it makes you tense. All the production and everything. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, you talk about crossing genres. I mean, that got played on country stations and on pop stations and on album rock stations, which that's quite the divergent, mix there.
Kind of a victory for Southern rock in a way. I mean, he got a Grammy for it. It was in a movie. It's a great story. It's got fiery music, just incredible fiddle playing in it. It had everything all together.
Is very much like Freebird. It's one of those anthems that you expect to hear.
One of the things about these bands in that era is that they weren't afraid to do things that were a little out of the ordinary, and they had that big, flute part in it, which is, really kind of cool.
It just catches you off guard. It's a great song, but I think every kid in school band was really excited when that song came out because they were like, cool, I can actually learn this. I've been playing the flute, and now I can play along to these records I love.
I think Marshall Tucker Can't You See's got to be up there. I think they're one of the most underrated, probably Southern rock bands.
Gonna take a freight train down at the station, Lord. I don't care where it goes.
Oh, can't you see? I mean, golly. That's just one of those. But there again, I'm not playing it for the audience. I'm playing it for me. I mean, I love to throw down on that.
Can't you see? Oh, Lord, can't you see what that woman was? She banned on me.
And one of the things I loved about Can't You See was hearing Toy play. As the song goes out, you really get that full dose of Toy Caldwell on that Les Paul. Pretty great.
Toy was something very, very special. That thumb was very, very special.
The thundering thumb of Toy Caldwell gave Toy a different kind of sound on his Les Paul. You know a Toy Caldwell guitar solo when you hear it.
I'm gonna buy a ticket.
When you relate to a song like Can't You See, it touches you, and I'm speaking through my heart. It's one of those songs that you can sing about heartbreak, and yet at the same time it had a great melody. So it kind of made you sad and melancholy, yet happy. It was a win-win.
Can't you see? Oh, Lord, can't you see what that woman was? She banned on me.
Coming up, CMT's top 3 greatest Southern rock songs. Who will be number 1? Find out when we return to CMT's 20 greatest Southern rock songs. The next 2 songs are all about freedom. Are you ready to spread your wings and fly?
Freebird. What comes to mind when you say Freebird? That's it.
It's one of the greatest songs in history. All the elements of country, blues, rock, the hippie era funneled down into that corner of America and came through Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it just kind of seemed to explode.
If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me?
First time I seen Lynyrd Skynyrd live, I went to JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. And it was one of those shows. They kicked everybody's ass. They knew what they had.
Those guys were so badass. They looked so tall and larger than life on a huge stage. It was just, it seemed like the entrance to the world of rock. They were just cool.
Every song by Skynyrd has me just turned up to 11. I could hear Freebird all day long, all the time, and get amped every time the guitar solo hits.
They were a great Southern rock band, but they were a great rock band, period.
I don't care who you are, how old you are, where you're from. Everybody knows Freebird, and that's just the way it is.
The phenomenal thing about the loss of Dwayne is that the Allman Brothers went on. They endured, and Dickie Betts really did a great job of filling in and kind of steering the sound towards a more country sound on Brothers and Sisters, which is the album that Ramblin' Man was on.
It's a country song. I could hear Merle Haggard singing that, and it was the one that had more of a traditional song structure, verse, chorus, verse, chorus.
That quality of the Southern rock greats. It's a song about freedom, about being on your own and about being a free spirit and kind of not being nailed down. I think that was a big part of the whole Southern rock spirit.
Dickie Betts is got just a phenomenal talent. I don't think the Allman Brothers can really play that song without him. I don't think they should play without him.
He knows the nature of the guitar. There's a lot of hot hands around, but not a whole lot of Dickies.
I've had the privilege to jam that song with him once. I always go back and watch that tape, just watch his hands move on that guitar neck, and it's just a phenomenal song.
End of that record, it's all Dickie Betts playing, and there's some just incredible guitar work in there. I mean, it's signature stuff. It's just one of those defining moments in rock and roll.
Dickie Betts becomes this really galvanizing force in the Allman Brothers, writes Ramblin' Man, which goes on to be their first big hit, and they kind of rallied with him and around him, and at a time when the train could have easily gone off the track, Allman Brothers rise again.
And now, it's time for the greatest Southern rock song ever written. Turn it up to 11 and let Lynyrd Skynyrd rock your world.
I think when you say the word Southern rock, the first thing that comes to most people's mind is Lynyrd Skynyrd.
So Sweet Home Alabama, that's the song of Southern rock. That's it, period.
The complexity, but also the simplicity in the guitar lick alone, the lyrics and the groove.
I mean, Ronnie Van Sant, in a way, I think epitomizes a certain kind of Southern rock lyric writing, which is, you know, this isn't kind of poetry that they taught you in school. This is a kind of, just almost a kind of street poetry or a kind of country poetry, maybe.
He was a guy with, you know, little to no education, no background that would indicate that level of brilliance and thoughtfulness. But he had it, and he had it in abundance.
did was just kind of stand there. He's barefooted on stage and just kind of hang on to his mic, but he just had charisma. He hung on to every word, and you wanted to watch him. Even as those guitar players were, spinning fireworks, you had this guy that you wanted to watch because he was just so compelling.
Ronnie Van Zant should have been canonized whenever that plane went down. To every Southern boy that grew up listening to his music, he remains a rock god. He never will get any better than that.
Sweet Home Alabama really does point out a lot of the complexity. A lot of what makes Southern art great are those problems, are that tragedy. All of that complexity is in a song that kind of sounds like an anthem, but it's got some edges, and it's got some rough undersides, and it's got some accusations, and it's got a guilty conscience. It's complicated, just like the South.
Starting Friday, July 14th, CMT puts you front and center at the biggest music festival around, Milwaukee Summerfest 2006. 3 nights in a row of sizzling concerts with Lynyrd Skynyrd, Hank Williams Jr., and Dierks Bentley. Get close, get rowdy, go wild. Toyota presents CMT at Summerfest. Begins Friday, July 14th at 8, 7 Central. Part of CMT's Summer of Music.